Hey, we're going to get started on this very exciting opportunity to be together in the Stone Church for what is our last event of the Literary Festival in here today. I'm Elizabeth Catlin. I am part of the festival organizing committee, and this year's festival is made possible by the generous support of Brattleboro Community Television, the Stepansky Family Trust, the Vermont Humanities Council, and poets and writers. And we would also like to thank our advertisers, and we encourage you to support them. They're in your program, which hopefully you have a copy of. So the festival is run entirely by volunteers like myself, but it has very real expenses, and we encourage you to make a donation if you have not yet done so this weekend in the donation box at the back of the venue, or you can grab the little card that has the QR code to scan to donate online through our website. So if you can just make sure to turn the ringer on your cell phone off. We are recording this event, and you just don't want to be that person. But you can use your phone to take photos, and we encourage you to share them with us on social media, Brattleboro Literary Festival. So, and a special shout out to the Works Bakery Cafe, who is the sponsor of this particular event. Again, a great business to give your business to in the days ahead. So I think you all know who you're here to see, but I am so excited to introduce her. So Moon Unit Zappa was born in New York City, the eldest child of Gail and musician Frank Zappa. She is an actress, writer, yogi, tea entrepreneur, award-winning humorist, stand-up comic, musician, and mother. Zappa first came to public attention in 1982 to me, and I imagine to many of you, at the age of 14 when she helped create and perform on her father's hit single, Valley Girl. It was Frank Zappa's biggest hit in the United States and popularized such phrases as, and you can say them with me, grody to the, and gag me with a, see, it's your people. So as a teenager, Zappa acted memorably in numerous television series and in the film Nightmares. She appeared in Curb Your Enthusiasm and on Roseanne, The Facts of Life, Chips. And while still 18, she was a technical consultant and appeared in several episodes of Fast Times. As an adult, she has worked as a stand-up comic, magazine writer, and actor, appearing in the films National Lampoon's European Vacation and Spirit of 76, the television sitcom Normal Life, and the Super Mario Brothers Super Show. In 2000, Zappa appeared as a guest vocalist on Kip Winger's third solo album, Songs from the Ocean Floor. She is the author of the novel America the Beautiful, published in 2001, as well as, of course, the author of the book she is here to talk about today. This memoir is a blast of a read, by turns harrowing, touching, hilarious, tender, and wise. It's a beautifully written account of living in a confusing, highly creative, somewhat dysfunctional family dedicated entirely to maintaining the prolific artistic life of Frank Zappa. It's also a chronicle of healing from chaos and not passing dysfunction on to the next generation. We are so thrilled to welcome Moon Unit Zappa. Please help me.
I did not write that bio. The fact that Kip Winger is mentioned in my, I'm just like, that is genius. I think I'm just gonna say I appeared only on that. That's my new bio, just the Kip Winger thing. Love it. How many of you have already read the book? Okay, sweet, 3 of you, great. So this will probably be possibly the most fun for you. But I'll try to not just speak in inside terms here. So I'm gonna read a little bit. First of all, I have to stand up. I mean, we're in a church-ish. It feels like church adjacent, and so pulpit adjacent also. So I'm gonna just read a few things. Can you hear me all right? Okay, great. Okay. Growing up, I was just like you. I had a rock star for a dad, was told to call my parents by their first names, had 2 invisible camels for playmates, and daydreamed about my future following in Frank's footsteps by helping people and making them laugh, only I'd be dressed like a nun. I admit I was also tempted to be barefoot and in charge behind the scenes like my fertile, bossy mother. 100 babies sounded about right for my temperament since I already adored helping Gail raise my 3 younger siblings. 97 more of what I already loved seemed like a dream. Plus that episode of The Little Rascals where they took care of all those babies by gluing them to the floor and feeding them cake really cracked me up. Of course, the children acquisition details were hazy since I didn't want to have a husband. Who wants a man who leaves all the time and stays away too long? Luckily, destiny had something else in mind for me altogether. As they say, man plans and God laughs, or gives you an unconventional celebrity family and a random hit single when you're not even a musician, or psychologically, emotionally, professionally, and legally kicks you in the taint until you rock bottom your way back to life among the loving living, or whatever the expression is. But I'll get to all that. I got my first journal when I was 5 for Christmas, then every year after I'd get a new one. They were hardbacks bound in black leather with gold embellishments on the cover and along the paper edges. So fancy. These books felt important. I believed I had a responsibility to do excellent work in them, to match their external beauty and honor the dead trees I held in my hands, a concept my mother had recently illuminated along with explaining that hamburgers were deceased cows. Plus, the diaries were from Gail and Frank, my mother and my father, with the inscription to me in his handwriting. So I put undue pressure on myself to turn these blank nothings into weighty somethings, as I saw my idol dad doing on his large, butter-colored music paper. When I wasn't writing short stories about my imaginary camels, Tamershi Deween and Sanini, or about aliens or ballerinas or nuns or alien ballerina nuns, I'd report on the happenings in the house or the world at large. I was political and wrote a letter to President Ford to ask him to stop men from clubbing baby harp seals. I was ambitious and practiced signing my autograph in various handwriting styles. I was complimentary and wrote a letter to Tina Turner to let her know she was almost as good a dancer as me. I was boy crazy for Sean Cassidy and scrawled my married name, Moon Unit Cassidy, everywhere in loopy cursive. I used my journals as a secret best friend I could tell anything to. I'm sad. I wish my dad would take me with him to Europe. When I still lived at home and had no privacy, I'd write in code about really secret stuff so I had somewhere safe to be the real me, to vent my feelings with impunity, or draw penises. As time went on, I loosened the reins on my dad comparing and perfectionism in my journals and in life. I had no choice. Rightly or wrongly, I believed I would never be as good as my dad, so I had to learn to live with plain old me. This book is a collection of memories, reflections, drawings, photos, actual journal entries, and some overheard stories as I recall them. Some names and identifying details have been changed to protect the privacy of those mentioned. I partly wrote this memoir as a reclamation to tell my version of what happened in my childhood and early life as a gift to myself, as a map that charts how and where I ended up as an adult. I also wrote this book to entertain, so I hope you find something funny or of value here. If you choose to read only this wee introduction, I hope you can embrace my big takeaways. Love yourself, love yourself, love yourself. Growing up doesn't end when you become an adult. Outrage is the appropriate response to deception and betrayal. The way out is through. Make peace with what hurts and head towards joy. Run with the people who love you, lift you, and make you laugh. Write your future with the ink of today. May you go farther sooner. XX Moon. I'm going to read a few more little pieces here. Part 1, Earth. Countdown, 1967 to 1980. Chapter 1, Moon Unit. First, some context. It's America in 1967. The 20th century space race is on. Evel Knievel has successfully jumped 16 cars. The Vietnam War is growing in both number of troops and amount of pushback from the flower children protesting in Haight-Ashbury. In the same year Elvis surrenders his pelvis to marriage during the sexual revolution, I get born in New York City, instantly famous to a Gene Shrimpton lookalike and a skinny icon with a big nose and notable mustache. Frank has already been dubbed a musical genius by fans, critics, enemies, and peers. My birth name, Moon Unit, no hyphen, raises eyebrows across the planet during a time when long hairs are as terrifying to the establishment as communists. My first name, Moon, is weird enough at a time when girls usually receive more common names like Lisa, Kim, Karen, Debbie, and Jennifer, but my middle name, Unit, polarizes people, either unhinging or enthralling normies worldwide. If, however, you knew my dad's softer side, you'd know my middle name was bestowed upon me because my arrival heralded our foray into becoming a family unit. I will automatically feel an unspoken, steadfast, ferocious loyalty to my family, the unit part, and a pull to be like the actual moon, with no light of my own, just an ancillary object in the infinite reflecting of the light of the sun, aka the light of my heavenly father Frank, orbiting his every need and expression. The way it was told to me, my 20-year-old mother working as a secretary to the owner of the Whiskey A Go-Go on the Sunset Strip in 1966 first met my formidable 25-year-old father at LAX when she drove a co-worker friend, his girlfriend, to pick him up. Insta-sparks commenced between the club assistant turned chauffeur and the composer with Freakout and Absolutely Free under his belt. Shortly thereafter, he ran into my mother at the bank. Flirtation on rocket fuel. He was the eldest of 4, she the eldest of 7. Both his parents were second-generation Italians. His dad was a research scientist and metallurgist who spoke Italian to his stay-at-home wife. Gail's second-generation German-American dad was a nuclear physicist and naval captain. Her Honolulu-born mother of Portuguese descent, also a homemaker, but with movie star good looks. Gail and Frank were both negatively impacted by constantly moving from town to town as kids. They both had an aversion to religion, the status quo, and being mislabeled as hippies. They both had a love of sex, civics, cigarettes, and self-expression. I'm unsure if either of them were technically single when they met the second time, but Frank asked Gail out on an official date while waiting for his turn at the teller window. They say you know everything on the first date and everything else on the second. Frank, a gentleman, made good on his reputation for being anti-establishment when he picked Gail up in his lemon yellow station wagon and took her to a business meeting where he blew his nose into her skirt. Gail was shocked, but smitten, impressed by his dominance and humor, and high on being brought into his inner circle immediately. He was impressed that she was gorgeous, could keep up, and knew when to defer to him, but could also speak her mind. Date 2 was accompanying him on his whirlwind winter tour in platform shoes and floor-length coats, and never leaving his side, from what I can tell from the old photos. Their fates were thus sealed. In January 1967, my mother swore she felt my conception in Montreal, Canada. In early September of the same year, when my father was about to go on the road for many months in anticipation of missing my birth, Frank gave my very pregnant mother 2 names to choose from, Moon Unit and Motorhead. Doe-eyed, love-struck Gail, née Adelaide Gail Sloman, made her selection. The now 26-year-old Baltimore-bred Frank Vincent Zappa, realizing he would be leaving the 21-year-old miniskirt-wearing military brat model secretary fangirl from Philadelphia to fend for herself in a basement apartment on Jane Street in the West Village, offered something else, matrimony. I imagine my hypersexual maestro father must have known that due to cost, time differences, and leggy groupies in every city in Europe, he would likely not be checking in all that frequently. And if he did so, it would be via expensive, therefore short, staticky long-distance landline phone calls. So they tied the knot. I like to think it was mutual true love, but perhaps it was a swirling mix of practical and conciliatory stressors along with some latent, good old-fashioned Catholic guilt that caused my father to hastily marry my mother in a New York City courthouse 14 days before my delivery. Comically, he sealed the wedding offering, his second, her first, not with a ring, but with a ballpoint pen they'd used to sign the courtroom paperwork. No bouquet, just that pen clipped to her dress. The pen was promptly lost, a sign my mother must have considered, and my dad hopped on a plane in the smoking section to be feted for his virtuosity. Then, 2 days later, on September 16th, 1967, 12 days before my birth, Gail's father died under mysterious military circumstances, reported as heart failure. I can only imagine that in utero, my system was also flooded with an abundance of grief hormones. In a photo, it appears Gail attended the funeral solo. It is easy to picture the new bride feeling doubly abandoned by the most important men in her life, deeply sad and helpless, wondering about the government cover-up she believed was related to her father's classified knowledge of UFOs. The Navy captain grandfather I never met was buried at Arlington National Cemetery. While mourning, broke, and friendless, my rock widow mother fought postpartum depression in a sunless underground one-bedroom apartment. After a few intolerable snowy months, more or less trapped with a newborn attached to her nipple and a needy, talkative Siamese cat, Gail hit an all-time low. The isolation, exacerbated by the alarming smell of the great garbage strike of 1968, pushed my mother to express her misery. The only advice my absentee father gave was, "Go west, young woman." So she did. Their dollars stretched in the Golden State, swaddled in cotton, satin, and velvet. The grieving but determined newlywed and new mom returned to California and the warmth of their holy meeting place, where she single-handedly settled the three of us into a Laurel Canyon landmark known as the Log Cabin. Long gone now, the all-wood mansion resplendent with a bowling alley in the basement and boasting 1920s movie cowboy Tom Mix's horse buried beneath it, loomed large near the Canyon Country Store, a rock and roll hotspot that still stands today. Our spacious oasis had a swimming pool, a waterfall, and caves behind it that my parents would soon discover housed another burgeoning clan, the Manson family. So we moved again. This time, Gail found a sun-drenched, two-bedroom, ranch-style fixer-upper in the windy hills above Laurel Canyon under canopies of eucalyptus, pine, royal palm, and Chinese elm. Do either of them have an inkling this will be their forever home? That here Gail will hone her penchant for color, and the humble abode will eventually morph into an outer manifestation of her inner chaos and whimsy, a sort of Winchester Mystery House-like compound with a full recording studio in the basement. Do they realize that together they will plant roots and claim victory over childhood upheaval? That here my father will do the difficult, solo, quiet, internal work necessary to transcend his potential, cementing his stratospheric talents for the ages. That here they will raise and divide a family and breathe their last breaths? I have no clue. But this home, with all its raw potential, is where my story begins. Woo! I think I'll read one more that's kind of maybe funny. Let's see. It's Fun Being Me, Chapter 34. It's 1986, and I am 19, and Dweezil is 17, and he gets a job working as a VJ for MTV. Gail can't take that much time away from raising our younger siblings, Amit, who is now 11, and Diva, who is now 6. So she sends me to New York to be Dweezil's legal guardian. This way, his career can get some traction since mine appears to have stalled. Boyfriendless, jobless, and desperately needing a break from my mother, I am thrilled to share a fancy hotel room in my favorite city, order mashed potatoes and hot chocolate by night, and stand around watching my brother have fun by day. His job consists of reading music news from a teleprompter and throwing to a video. Soon enough, the higher-ups decide that since I am already there, they may as well put me on camera too. Wherever we go, girls swoon and dudes bro out asking for Dweezil's autograph or for me to take a photo of them. I'm never included in these photos, even though I have equal airtime now. One time we are standing in front of a wall of TVs and we are both on screen and people still don't notice me. Dweezil and I joke that I have the power of invisibility and we laugh about a career of petty crime pickpocketing. Goody two-shoes that I am, my idea is to surprise people and fill their pockets with hilarious stuff. Of course, The MTV job includes a bunch of fun stuff too. I adore the interviews with cool musicians and actors. We meet everyone from the Beastie Boys to my current crush, Spalding Gray. On one occasion, Mia Sara, fresh from Ferris Bueller's Day Off and the film Labyrinth with David Bowie, and her boyfriend Justin, who plays guitar with Julian Lennon's band and who looks a lot like Dweezil, come on the show. We all improvise a dumb comedy bit where no one can tell anyone apart. Mia and Justin seem like a perfect couple to me. They look like they weather all storms together and rely on each other as their chosen family. I am so happy for them, so happy to see a good example of a polite and loving man and a strong but vulnerable woman and the reciprocity between them. I am also a little jealous. Then the subject of pants comes up, and Mia mentions something bonkers, that she always knows what clothes to buy and buys very little because her sizes are predictable and never change. I am gobsmacked, reliably wearing the same favorite things, confidently trusting your body, and always being skinny. I tell them my weight fluctuates based on what's happening in my life, my resulting mood, and the overeating of carbs and sugar to cope when things are going wrong. Justin and Mia's heads tilt askew in unison. I look at everyone differently after this conversation. Can everyone always fit in their pants? How do others manage their emotions if not through overdosing on muffins and cheesecake? On a day off, instead of a moose or a blackout bunt, I buy a human baby-sized teddy bear that's heavier than an actual newborn. I buy baby clothes for the bear and start to bring it with me wherever I go. Jacket, purse, lipstick, journal, bear, keys. My family and friends don't say anything about it to me, and strangers likely just think I'm being eccentric, considering who my father is, but I don't do it to get attention. This is before therapy animals, service pets, and the understanding of complex PTSD we have today. I myself do not realize this is my subconscious's primal attempt to soothe myself and pacify my free-floating anxiety. I am replacing cannoli and croissants with something I can hug. In New York, 3 other extraordinary things happen. 1, Dweezil and I get a fan letter and befriend a Jessica, who is our age and the straightest, most normal, kind, and fun, non-show business person I have ever encountered. We all hit it off right away, even though she has a crush on Dweezil and would probably ditch me in a second given the chance. She's tall, slim, and from Connecticut, and wears ballerina flats and a big wool coat. She and I share common interests in authors, movies, caffeine, and journaling. She accepts my teddy bear and baby clothes obsession and reframes the behavior as stemming from my desire to be a mother and my longing to have something meaningful in my life outside of a job. This feels true. I adore her for her insight, which she clearly sees because she also hopes to be a mom someday. She sees the bear and baby clothes as keepsakes to give to my future baby. Jessica and I begin sending each other vintage postcards of babies, and soon I have amassed a pile of goal-setting reminders about who I could become. Phew, I can have a life outside of work. My beady-eyed, inanimate companion with a nose I've rubbed off from excessive wear and tear is just a 3D vision board I can dress up. 2, walking around the Upper West Side, I run smack into a baby clothes store called Moon Unit Baby Clothes. Seeing my name connected to baby clothes drives the point home. I am me, and I need to have my own career and life. Jessica is right, and the universe confirms it. I go inside and buy a black and white striped prison inmate newborn onesie, a pair of blue bloomers, and a pink baby tee with the store logo for my future daughter. When they ring everything up on my credit card, the look on their faces is one I can't quite understand. It will turn out to be horror and fear of a lawsuit because the store closes within the month without me saying or doing anything. 3, I'm standing around on the floor of the air-conditioned MTV soundstage waiting to read my lines from the teleprompter. Dweezil's nearby, likely in his dressing room, or talking to Beth, our floor director, or maybe Martha Quinn. On a TV screen, I see an interview clip of a newly famous singer dressed like a valley girl in a mini dress and headband. Is this why she catches my eye? She is promoting her radio hit and video called I Want to Dance with Somebody. Her name is Whitney Houston, and she is clearly already a seasoned pro, with confidence born of years of beauty, charisma, poise, and songbird talent. The young woman keeps answering the interviewer's questions with a giant smile, repeating, "It's fun being me." I feel a tidal wave of anger and jealousy at this response. Who says that? What the hell does she even mean? It's fun being her? Who thinks it's fun to be who you are? I briefly try to inhabit her shoes and see the world that way. I try to imagine what it would be like to be her liking being her, to be her liking herself and liking her lot in life. I can't do it. Then I try to imagine what it would take for me to feel that way about myself, about my own life. I can't even begin to locate how that could happen. Do other people besides Whitney like being themselves? I look around at the cameramen, the producers, the interns. Did they like being themselves? Walking back to our hotel along crowded streets, I search the faces of the people I pass and wonder about them. Then I write Whitney off and decide this rail-thin rising star is either an anomaly or bloated with arrogance. I could never be friends with someone with such an overdeveloped sense of self. That's what Gail would call it. Like people who throw birthday parties for themselves, she'd say, or the people who put themselves at the center of everything and make everything about them, putting the emphasis on I and me and mine. But Whitney's words haunt me for the next 40 years. Self-love is what I heard her describe that day. Here's a spark of it. Here's what it looks like. Here's what it feels like. It feels good. Given Whitney's eventual fate, I now have to wonder if I saw something else that day, a cautionary tale of a shining light of a girl being pushed, a girl being used, a girl wanting her words to be and stay true, a girl like me. You never know when your own writing is going to catch you. It's off guard. I'm like, that is really upsetting. I think I'll just take some questions, or maybe I'll just get my ride out there. They're honking and just run out the door from fear of this confrontational part. Okay. Does anybody have any questions? Otherwise, I'll just read again. Okay, you. Hello. Hi. What's your name? Hi, Erica. Nice to meet you.
What was the process like? When did you start thinking about writing a memoir? Was it gradual? Were you writing it as essays? Like, how did it happen for you that this came about?
Okay, so all my life I was asked what was it like growing up with Frank Zappa for a father, and I always thought it was Gail's story to tell because she was the adult opposite my father, and she knew all the references and knew about the gear and that sort of thing, and I really deferred to Gail on that, and I kept encouraging her to write. Honestly, partly because if I tried to do it, she would just really have a fit that I was getting yet more spotlight. In my house, it was like I call it Pharaoh syndrome, where it's a pyramid and all the arrows point to the tip, which is my father. So all the energy was going this way. It was to serve his. He made, I think, 100 albums in 25 years, and that doesn't include all of the stuff in the vault and the films and his writings, and he wrote screenplays and all kinds of things. So again, I thought it was Gail's story to tell after my father passed, and then when Gail got sick and she died. I don't know if you know the story, but she died, and she left all the intellectual property to my two younger siblings that I helped raise, and said Dweezil and I could never have anything to do with the intellectual property, which was a surprise. And she also put in the will that if any of us found God, we wouldn't even get what we were given. So. Bit of a curveball, and so I honestly thought I have to write this to save my own life and just be like, who are these people? Because it was people would say, did you see it coming? And I was like, no. But then I went back to my journals and I just thought, I was like, oh yeah, that tracks actually. That's always been there. But it surprised me that my siblings were like, "This is a great idea. I love this idea." Basically, I lost 3 people in one fell swoop, and 2 were alive. And every day I kept waking up going, "Today's the day they're going to wake up and say, 'I'm sorry, I figured it out.'" And that day didn't come. And so I was like, I guess, burn this thing to the ground and start over, and begin again. The other thing that I realized in the process of writing was that had Gail not done that, I would have continued, in all likelihood, to keep making sure my father's legacy continued, and still never, dive into my own creativity. And so I don't want to say Gail did me a favor, because she didn't. But I love making lemonade out of the things that happened to me. So I make a lot of lemonade, and so that's how we got there. But had it not happened this way, I probably would have written a book that was like essays of like the 12 fun things that happened growing up and how to be like Zappa family values or something, one of these kind of things. And so I guess in that way you've all been spared, as have I. So that's my long-winded answer. In the back.
You ever try musical instruments yourself? Try to play guitar or anything?
I waited a long time to pick up an instrument because, where do you go? Where do you go from that? In the book, I tell a story about choosing the harp because I was a fan of Harpo Marx, and I thought I'd love his career. That seems just silent and then just plucking something. And so you can read about what happens when I try that. And then, I did happen upon an instrument called the tiple, which is basically like a 10-stringed, kind of like a ukulele. I'm saying all these instrument names wrong, so I apologize. But it's just this beautiful little instrument. So that's how I started. I thought, okay, I still like strings. To play, to listen to, I love drums, but I mean that's my favorite thing to listen to, drums. So, yes, but I'm terrible at everything. But I think it's still important to have instruments in your house and to pick them up anyway and just goof around. So that's a very important thing to have, I think. You, sir.
How did you meet Andrea, and how did Valley Girl happen? Andrea was actually a student of my mother.
Oh, that's hilarious. Yeah. So he's referring to a girl that I write about in the book. I had gone to a bar mitzvah, and first of all, I was going to school. Where I lived growing up was in Laurel Canyon. There's no sidewalks. You don't know who your neighbors are until you can drive. You're like, where do you live? And it turns out like 2 doors down. And so when I finally went to school, and I went to this college preparatory school called Oakwood, and it was a school with many children of celebrities and people in the show business in that world, and so I was introduced to these parties called bar and bat mitzvahs, and I was just amazed by the conversations I was overhearing, by the lyrical quality of the way the girls were talking, their outfits, their lightheartedness. It was so foreign to me. It was exotic, actually. And so on one particular occasion, I met a girl who was just like the pinnacle human that was just she talked like that, and she was just a hilarious girl. So between that and going to the Galleria on the weekends, and just people watching, that was just the music to my ears of that time. And so then I eventually ended up writing. I was 13 at the time, and so I ended up, at that point, my dad was traveling for 7 to 9 months out of the year, like every two years in a row, and then he'd have some time off to be working in the studio, and then he'd sleep during the day and then work at night. So he was home, but he wasn't home, and I couldn't really bother him. So I ended up writing a note to him and saying, it turns out you seem to really like the studio, so maybe we could work together. And so I slid a note under the door, and I said, if you would like me to do that surfer dude voice or that valley voice, then contact my manager, Gail. And then I gave him the telephone number because I don't think he had it. And then and then he woke me up on a school night. And then he said, "Okay, we're gonna do these improvisations." And so he just kept saying, "Okay, now say tubular. Okay, now talk about how much you hate cleaning the cat box." And so it just went on. It went on like that. So. You, madam?
The piece that you read about Whitney Houston was remarkably insightful about both yourself and your career. And I'm wondering how you are feeling now in terms of being at peace with yourself.
Ooh, I mean, I don't know that I'm at peace with myself. I think it's a goal. I think every single day, if you come from, well, my experience, I'll speak for myself. If you come, I came from some pretty heavy-duty dysfunction in terms of Gail's treatment of me. And so it's really hard to get her voice out of my head. So every day I climb mean voice mountain, and I'm just like, nope. No. And if I really feel like I have to indulge it, maybe I set a little mental timer. I'm like, you have 30 seconds. Go, what do you have to say? I'm like, not interesting. And so I just gotta but it's a muscle to just say, okay, this anger and this grief and this sadness and this whatever, these lost years, there's an energy to each of those states. And so I think, okay, how could I make how could I be productive with these reserves of fuel that I didn't ask for, but I've got these weird jetpacks. So I just try to turn it into something that's useful to myself and to other people. So, somebody in the back?
Yeah, what parts of your career are you proud of?
What parts of my career, what?
Are you proud of?
Oh, what parts of my career am I proud of? Well, I mean, I'm really proud of the craft of writing. I'm obsessed with storytelling. I volunteer my time to talk to writers at the Writers Guild. I've worked on writing for film and television. My things have only ever got to the pilot stage and never beyond it so far. But I'm obsessed with really all forms of storytelling. So I love talking to writers. I love talking to people who, think about this stuff day and night, from the instruments they use to where they're sitting to the programs that they have on their computers to, is it a fountain pen? Is it I love every single detail about it. And that's one thing that's endlessly fascinating. And I worked really hard on this book to take the reader through the journey of, is genius worth the collateral damage? And I tried to do it in such a way that I grow you up with me. And I also thought about the structure. I mean, I tried many different first I was like, do I just talk about all the beds we had, or the bed trends? I mean, we had every single, like when the waterbed happened, and then the foam mattress, and then all the beds my dad slept with all the groupies in, and it's like there's a lot of beds. And I was like, that doesn't seem to be the one that's holding. So. But you try stuff out as a writer, and you just it is a weird process. You just there's stories that didn't make it in there because this is the thing that this wanted to be, and so it's a mysterious process, and a lot of times I just felt like I was just I would ask friends. I would say, have I ever said anything that was helpful or funny or anything? They're like, yes, here's a bunch of them. And so I was like, oh, right, okay, yeah. So, but I think also I love that I have a tea company. Tea is my other passion. I have a little tea company called Moon Unit Tea, and that's fun for me. And I think I'm still discovering it. I'm a late bloomer, and I want to say also that the way I think about life, and it's because I grew up going, I feel like there's a book that everyone else has I don't have, and I worked my life like a cold case, and or a Sudoku puzzle, like one of the hard ones. You're like, how do you even start? And so I always think about, okay, if you're to like identify where you're stunted. In my case, identify where I'm stunted, and then find the experts in those arenas, and then grow those parts of myself up, and then move all those parts forward. So if I could construct it like a something with wings, and then you move with but other people apparently are not living like this. So.
Where do you think your father would be on the political spectrum?
I wished that they would have made my father into a hologram and then got all the speech writers together and just, gave my father the voice against you know who, and then had that conversation happen. My father was such a proponent of the First Amendment and just a fighter for civics, and just that was, he just, I think. Watch his C-SPAN interviews, his Crossfire interviews, and you can kind of get a sense. I think objects in motion tend to stay in motion, but who knows? Who knows? Yes?
Frank was strictly anti-drug.
Yes.
Did that help keep you and Dweezil from being Hollywood tragedies, do you think?
I think somebody did say that in Woodstock, they're like, thank God that part wasn't part of your story, because that's probably what saved you guys. Yeah, he was very strict. No drugs, no alcohol. For his musicians, they would be fired on the spot. Also, when we'd go to the shows, people were so wiggly. I just thought, ew. What are they doing? And then as I was having success as a teenager, unasked for, and then I would meet my idols, and then they would be, whatever, drinking or doing drugs at a party. I was like, this cannot be what you do at the top. You've got to be kidding me. It cannot be about a mixer or I don't understand it. So it just was never appealing. I was really into self-mutilation and carbs. So that's finished now, ish. The carbs are still, they linger. But there's exercise for that. So I do love an extreme exercise, dance, run thing. So I got to take walks in the beautiful area here. It was a lot of fun. Hat.
Since your name was supposed to be
Motorhead.
was your father a car guy? Motorhead?
I'm sorry, was it what?
Was your father
A Motorhead.
I'm sorry?
cars?
Cars. No, he had a band member named Motorhead. And in fact, Dweezil was originally named after my father's band. His name was Ian Donald Calvin Euclid Dweezil Zappa. Dweezil because he had a baby toenail that looked like Gail's baby toenail, so Dweezil. When he was 5, he was outraged. He was named after members of the band and also people that weren't in the band anymore. So he asked to have those names removed from his birth certificate. And apparently, when Gail and Frank named Dweezil, they refused to give Gail food. Or take care of her. That's why he made it Ian Donald Calvin Euclid Dweezil Zappa, but they called him Dweezil. And then when Diva was, I think, 16, Gail, for her birthday, my baby sister, 12 years younger, Gail gave her a middle name, had her name legally changed to Diva Magica Zappa. So you can get a name change at any time. You can remove names, add a name, and this was just something you would do. Yes? Oh, no, I was estranged from them when I wrote this story. I had originally, when Gail was alive, I kept saying, hey, let's do a family memoir. Let's map a spine, a timeline, and we can just pop in, whoever has the best story for this year, let's just tell this story. I hadn't ever seen it done. I thought that would be really, really cool, but every single idea I had, Gail would shoot down. So I'd be like, wah. And then after she died and everything happened, I wrote it by myself. I just, unfortunately, I'm only talking to Amit, not my choice, starting to make inroads with Diva, but Amit's read the book and he loves it. So I was really happy about that. Yeah. So we did an interview. He has a show called Rock Tales. He started drinking late in life. He's enjoying he talks to people, musicians. He gets them drunk and then they just have a chat about music. And so. But I went on the show and he surprised me and he just went through the book and he was like, I love this, you're a genius, it's so funny, but why did you talk about her dad's penis so much? Oh, you're my sister. So that was fun. Yes?
Did you do an audiobook?
I did do an audiobook. Thanks for asking.
I'm really enjoying your reading and I thought sometimes I'm sure it reads great on the page, but it was really fun hearing
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, I think people seem to be enjoying it. So yeah, in the audio form. I think we're good. Thank you. Thank you so much for this opportunity. What an amazing festival. Thank you.